Welcome to the Advanced Shell Training Series. My name is Nate Nessler, and this is for Hyperactive Studios. Now, let's have a look at some of the things that we can do here. If I go ahead and do a cat, and I do etc/shells, this will let me show me what shells should be available in the system. Now, unfortunately, I just did a check on this, and just because it's listed here doesn't actually mean it's installed. So, on Ubuntu anyhow. So, if you go in here and you say sudo space apt-get install, and you want to say this particular shell you want installed to make it work, then you're going to say, like, something, for instance, CSH for that particular shell, and then it will install it. I also need the same thing with tcsh here, and just another random one out there. I'll throw it do this, as that is a shell too. Okay, now we already have bash installed because bash is standard and default on most systems, so we already have that in place. And in this case, I'm installing the zsh, and this one's taking longer than the other ones. Alright, there we go. If at any point in time I want to clear out junk from above, I just say clear, and it'll empty out my space here. Now, the cool thing about this is that these commands, although we've been using them at the prompt for a while now, also can be typed into a file. So, for instance, if I want to do the same thing here, I can specify the particular shell I want to use in a script. And this way I can change my shell. I can show you how to do this in the prompt here in just a second too. And I'll do a pound sign here, !bin/bash. Bash is going to choose the bash shell, which is going to be it's probably the most commonly used shell out there, honestly. But some of the others can be very useful for particular purposes. Okay. In this case, an ls here would let me do a listing. And of course, this wouldn't be all that useful, but let's say this did, and this would give us a listing here. But the thing is you can do an entire script for going into folders and parsing out files and creating files from your shell commands, and we'll get into that more and more of how to do that as we go through the series here. But if I wanted to change shells at the prompt here for what I was typing, for instance, I didn't want to work in bash anymore. Sign home. Let me back. Alright, let's do it real quick, show you. Alright, clear. It's going to let me wipe out. I'm going to do a chsh, do a -s to specify shell, and then I'm going to say what shell it is. And I'm going to actually specify the entire path here. So /bin/ let's do tcsh, for instance. Alright, put in my password. Alright. So, depending on what shell you use either CWD or PWD. In this case, we use CWD. For certain shells, PWD is not going to work. PWD stands for present working directory. For other ones, CWD is the way it has to be, or current working directory. These apparently seem to be working fine with it. Alright. But I'm going to switch back over to my bash shell again, because I like bash. I've been using bash for forever, so I like bash. Okay. There we are. So I'm back to bash again. Now, some other things we need to take a look at. The command for updating after the libraries have been edited is ldconfig. Okay, so if I gone in and I've edited the /etc/ld.so.conf file, then I have edited the libraries that have been installed on the system. This is great if I'm hand installing a program, or if I'm coding out a Linux application or something of that nature in development, or just need to make something fit and I can't do it through RPM or or through a Debian file or anything like that. I can do it by hand, actually, and by telling it what directories to add to the system, and then just doing an update or putting it into standard default folders. So like, for instance, /lib/usr/lib/usr/local/lib, etc., etc. These are all defaults and standards within the system, and it's already acknowledged by the system. So in order to update, I need to do a sudo, because this is a root level command, ld-config, like this, and that will update my libraries. You're probably saying, well, how can you tell? It just, kicked it back. Well, if I do up arrow here and I do a space -v here for verbose, this is going to display all of it, and it's a ton. But say I wanted to get to a particular shell command, I would want to use something called grep. Now grep is a wonderful, wonderful shell tool that you will use again and again and again and again, let me tell you. What we're going to do is we're going to do pipe indirection to redirection here. So let me go ahead and pipe this over to grep and say, in this case I have CEGUI as one of the libraries I'm working with. If I do that, bam, it pulls up all the libraries in this programming environment that I've coded, and well, I didn't code it, but I've compiled it and put it into place that I am using it for my code, appears right here. Very cool. Now, something you would more likely see on your system, because you're not going to probably have this unless you did actually, hand install that program. Well, not program, but development libraries. GTK, for instance. You'll probably have GTK if you're running in GNOME. If you're not running in GNOME and you're running in KDE, you'll have Qt. And I don't seem to have much of anything for Qt. Okay, so be it. But GTK I do. That's because I don't have Qt installed, I only have GTK installed. Alright, so say I like what I'm seeing here, but I really would like to have this in a file instead. No, I'll tell you what, let's okay, so if I'm at a regular terminal and I'm not in graphical, I can't scroll back up. And so that's a problem. Right? So thus came the more command, or the less command, either way you want to do it. And it shows me a listing, and I can go through it line by line by hitting the enter key, or if I hit the space bar, it lets me jump at it by pages, like so. Now, what if I were to do this and I were to pipe this instead into a file? Now remember, here we are, and I want to do some redirection to generate a new file, and I could say maybe GTK. I'm going to give this a name right here, GTK libraries or libs, like that, and .txt for instance. Okay, so this is going to create this file like so. If I do an ls, we'll see what's available in it, and check it out. GTK libs.txt now exists in my system here. If I were to cat GTK libs, is going to display that which we just had. You're like, well, isn't that the same thing? No, look, it's stored in the actual file, which is really cool, actually. So if I come over here, it has essentially written up this file for me. This has massive implications because this allows us to extract individual pieces of information and then generate a file from it. This is extremely useful from a network perspective for administrative purposes, because then we can extract individual information from individual pieces of files, and then use that information, break it down, extract individual parts of that information, and then use that to parse that text and generate entirely new files that basically auto writes other files, more or less, configuration files from another configuration file. And in this way we can actually generate entire files that we need. Now, we're not quite ready for this, but you're starting to see how we can use this type of techniques to do this. Okay, so now we could take this further. If we so desired. I could print this if I liked. Since I could pipe that to LPR. And if I have LPR set up for my printer, guess what it's going to do? It's actually going to print this text file. There's other things I can do with this too, besides that. and this is going back over to there. But what if I wanted to get a little, well, I'll tell you what, let's look at some other techniques here. PS, for instance, is process. Alright, so if I do PSAU, it's going to give me a lot more information than just the very basics. And this is pretty much what I really want to see probably most of the time here. Alright. So say I wanted to get just the ones that were bash, so I could do this with the server, so I only see what's running in the system. And I don't get a bunch of other stuff that I don't want. I can pipe this to grep, such so, and actually, yeah, I need to type out the rest, right? Bash here. So that way I only get bash. And so this way it comes back with just the processes I'm interested in and not the entire list. This isn't bad here because I don't have much running, but if I was running a whole bunch of servers and a whole bunch of other things were going on the system at once, this list for a PSAU would get quite long. And this way we can extract just the ones we're looking for. And this makes life so much easier. Go ahead and I'll clear for that. Okay. So, that said, you can start to see some of the ways that we can use, and this could let us verify whether or not a server is running, and just a whole bunch of other stuff that's quite nice. Because when you start intermixing some of the stuff for netstat, for instance. Alright, so there's net status, and whoa, that's a lot of stuff, right? Well, it doesn't have to be this ridiculous. Obviously, this would be a total nightmare to hunt down what it was you were looking for. So you can use these commands to narrow down just what it is that is of interest to you and nothing more. Apologize. Alright. Vertical bar here. Let's do grep. And I don't know, /var for instance. Alright, so this pulls out just the ones that were /var and nothing else. So you can see a big difference here. It's really reduced the amount of clutter that we had going on here and got me down to just what I was looking for, more or less. Okay. Let's have a look at some other parts here too, to all this. And, oh yes, let's not forget the PS tree. So, PS tree. Alright. This shows if we've had forked processes and basically parent and children processes within the system. So here we can see where we have GDM binary, GDM simple slav, and then XORG here in GDM session work, session is probably slave, and then so on and so forth, as it doesn't fit on the screen anymore. Getty, etc., etc., etc. And then this way you can see how different parts are running underneath here. So terminal bash, bash, su, bash, ps tree, da 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 da. Going on down. So this is very cool because this lets you know what the order hierarchy is for execution of a program and what's spawning what, etc., etc., etc. And you can narrow it down if you wanted to, so on and so forth. And this can be quite useful in your system for checking out things. Okay. Now, besides all that, there are some other things that we should really be interested in with grep. And let's go into some more advanced options with grep and not just a basic so well, let me show you. Who am I, for instance. It's going to let you know who you are. Who lets you see who is run on the system, so on and so forth. um, currently, logged in and set up and running, so on and so forth. There's some other ones like that too that are useful. And this could also, if you pipe this in the grep, you could find just a particular user you're looking for. This is going to be extremely useful. Say if you suspect some activity or something, you can hunt down that particular person and see exactly what they are doing. Obviously, we found Nate is on the system here. What if I did top here instead? And top is going to give me a list of all the commands going on. I hit Control C to end that tool. Alright. You can also get to help, if I could spell, for a particular system. And in here you can see that I needed from before to use a -u. And notice it only pulls up the processes that Nate is running and not a whole bunch of other ones, like for instance root, etc. And now I can get an up-to-date listing of the processes running on the system in a command line manner. Okay, ls, and there we are, like so. There's a lot of special commands like this that are extremely useful, and we can see what's going on with them. Okay, and we're going to move on to grep, but in more depth here, as we see fit. Alrighty. I'm just hitting the up arrow to go back to previous commands. Alright. I already did that one. My mistake. Alright. But say I only wanted say I only wanted the ones ending in a certain setup here. Oh, well, this is GTK, of course. Okay. Well, this is end of line anchor. It's probably not going to help us too much, actually. I ended up with nothing, of course. And the reason why is because it's only going to let me see what's at the end. This lets me find just the lines that are ending with 5, for instance. And that's what that $5 did. Now, what if I wanted to find something at the beginning? I can specify TO. So, and it's only going to give me the ones of crypt because it's the only ones that ended with the libc here. Went up to this point, and then ... which went past CRY. Ended up skipping those. I'm sorry, not CRY, but RYP. It's going to skip past those, and then the TO here, like so. Alrighty. Besides the periods, we can also do a match too. So, as a for instance, let's see here. Do we have any listings that are lower in uppercase? Alright. It would really help if there are, but there may not be. Alright, I tell you what, let's do it with C in my case, because don't forget I have libce GUI. So let's show you this in a second. But what if I said brackets around here, and I did for the range of uppercase and lowercase c. Okay, so now I'm finding everything with a lower and uppercase c, either way, because I managed to do a range with the brackets as such. And I happen to know I had capitalization in that particular one off the top of my head, so I was able to exploit that for this demonstration purposes. You may not have one with upper and lowercase capitalization for certain parts here. You would have to go through and look to find one here, and just a regular verbose command here. And if you scroll up through it, you'll probably find something that may have upper and lowercase letters. Like for instance, libqt webkit right here certainly does. So there's something on your system too. You'll find one somewhere, and you can test that same idea out on your own configuration. So that worked out well for me. What if I did Q and lower Q? Because you'll probably have this. Alright, and there we go. And got some more of them. So on and so forth. Alright, let's look at another command that we could use. Alright, so this command here allows me to do a range between C and Z, for instance, for these characters. They're all capitalization, and I get a range of this capitalization letters here at the end here. So that's cool. Let's look at some other things that we can do here. Alright, so let's look at egrep, extended grep, and we're still going with our sudo ld config here, -v here, vertical bar. So we're piping over to egrep here, and from the screen. And what I want to do is I'm just do a +2, and here inside of quotes, making it a string. And I just want to see one or more repeating 2s here, so to speak. Alright, so you see you got multiple 2s in the same line. So it's going to pull up if there's one or multiple 2s. And that's what the plus allowed me to do there, as you can see. So that's a good demonstration of what you can do with that, and egrep too. Also, let's look at doing CE or QT, and this was a vertical bar here. It means or. Now you're probably thinking, well, no, wait, that means pipe. Yes, it does. Over here, it means pipe. Over here, it means or as a logic gate, more or less, for your conditional. So basically, what you do is you have a space here, and you do a space, and it's just between commands in the vertical bar. It means it's going to be a pipe. But if you do it inside of quotes, with inside of a condition or something like that, then it's going to mean an or statement instead. So let me go ahead and run that. And there we go. We see we have QT or CE, and it does one of the two. So you can start to see how you can just narrow down what it is you're looking for. And this is incredibly important for administrative standpoint, because if you narrow down what you're looking for, then you can kick this out to another file. You can make a configuration. You could do LDAP, you know, by doing directory service here in the low lightweight directory protocol here, application protocol, and that will let you basically create nodes in the system for the setup. Okay, for that. We'll get into that stuff later on. But for now, let's just look at what we can do. We also say that we only want lib here. Of course, this isn't going to make much of a difference because everything's lib. But say we only want the ones that are starting with lib, in which case it's going to be everything in this case. But you know, in other files where that wouldn't be the case, or other screen grabs, and you'd only get what you're looking for in particular. This AU, for instance. Let's see if I can't go some here. Okay, so yeah, what if I were to do that instead with PSAU, right? Instead of doing lib, what if I said Nate? And I went over here and I say PSAU like so, and we only get the ones with Nate, starting with Nate in particular. Very cool, and that gives us what we want. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Oh yes. Let's egrep here RW, where we want just the RWs from rewrite option available in the script. Now if I was to just do fs tab here, file system table, that would give me, yeah, that's fun too. We'll do that in just a second. Alright. Well, I'll tell you what. This also lets me see which ones end with, 1. So it shows me that. And then likewise, if I wanted to find the ones that end with 0 here, well, I'm lazy. I'm just going to change this one right here. I forget it. Let's do it quick, right? And then, let me show you real quick the cat /etc/fs tab file. And you can see this whole configuration file. And this has the different layouts for mapping a name to a particular device for a driver. So here's the device driver file, and here's the actual name of the media for the point for mounting. And then we're going to have what kind of type we're going to mount it on. In this case, this is auto mounting versus mounting type here, proc versus etc. Extension file system, like for or swap, whatever, etc., etc., etc. You can see the difference. These are volume, doing it through volumes. And then over here we have SW, and we have let's see here, errors, remount, read only here, and then a 0, and then a 1. And these options go into RO is read only, RW, see here, is going to be read write. User here for setting up for a user, be able to mount it. No auto means not auto mounting. Exec execution. Let's see here. Also, we have no dev for no device file driver mounting. So you can't mount this as a device file, as a driver, as a piece of hardware, if you will. No execute. No super user ID. That's what no suid is. And then again here, the 0 is for whether or not something can be fixed at boot time, so that way something doesn't get messed up, if you will. Like for instance, you wouldn't want to FISC a NFS mount, because that would be well, you wouldn't want the clients FISCing it. Server, sure, but not clients. So it depends on your setup. Okay, let me just go ahead and clear that real quick. And that's a little bit more of what we can do. You just got to see egrep here. There's more beyond this. There's also the good old question mark for deciding, what can and cannot be seen. We'll play with some of these later on here, a caret, etc., etc., as we get into more of the. In which case you can negate certain things. Like, for instance, you don't want to find a particular string. You can use a caret. But we'll get into some more of the stuff when we start getting into more of the logic parts of it with if condition statements and for loops here later on, and what you can do with some more of these conditions. I just want to give you a taste or a flavor of what you can do with some of these commands. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Okay, continuing on, let's have a look at some more types of greps. Well, there's several. There's rgrep, for instance. And here I'm just going to do rgrep is recursive grep. Now, there's multiple ways of doing this, but let's have a look at using rgrep and just doing a, well, I'll show you in a second. So here's rgrep, and what this is going to do is by saying recursive, it's going to go through all the directories that's in there. In this case, it says star for the files, so it's going to be all the files and all the directories within inside the etc. And it's going to look for all the cases where Nate is compatible. So, bam, there we go. And we got all kinds of stuff in here. Everything from terminate to my actual name being stored in here verbatim one way or the other. For instance, Nate is right here, as you can see. So very, very cool, and yeah, that's nice. Alright. So if you need to do it recursively, that works. Now, I can do it another way too. If I did an ls dash capital R, that's going to be recursive listing of the files, right? And if I were to pipe that into grep, just to your normal grep, then I can do Nate in this manner here. And notice I'm root. I need to be root in order to do this. And I'm going to get a little bit of a different scenario here, where it only comes up with that which is listed. Now if I were to normally list this capital R like that, that would give me everything. Quite a few files, matter of fact. Okay. And piping it into Nate's going to have it find just the items stored in there, like so, for the names of the files. So you can see a little bit of difference between doing grep and recursive grep. Granted, I could do a recursive grep on this setup here for recursive listing, and well, it gives me the same thing actually, only not highlighted. Okay, well, alright, so be it. But you can do, that's going to give you a recursive, going through all the files recursively for your grep, which is really nice and useful. Let's look at fgrep, which is fixed grep, which means you literally have an exact verbatim line. Alright, so let me show you NS switch here first. Alright, so this is a configuration file for determining what process is going to start up first instead of networking here. And right here for the net group, of course, we have NIS. We don't have anything for NetID or, well, anyways, there's RPC here, etc., 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 and other ones here. Now I went ahead and grabbed a particular entry that's exact here ahead of time, this one right here, and bam, so I get that back exactly. So check it out, this entry is verbatim with spaces and everything, exactly what is written on this line right here. So this is great if you need to get an exact line with exact punctuation or whatever back and you don't want anything else. This is really good for that. As a way of showing you exactly what I mean, and I didn't trust myself to type that exactly, I just didn't. So for every single character, spaces matter too, so like everything matters. So if I select this and I hit middle click, it's going to go ahead and paste that in just like that, okay? And then if I say enter, it's going to return back just that line and nothing else. So very cool, and it gives me exactly what I want for my setup here. Okay, and that goes over fgrep and over rgrep, and we've gone over extended grep and then regular grep, and let's look at some more grep because we're not done with grep, not by a long shot here. So let's look at some other things that we can use grep for. As a real quick setup here. So yeah, it's the same one. Okay. I'm not gonna bother. Let's do ld config here -v verbose. Let's pass this over to grep again, and let's search for, oh, I don't know, let's do ce GUI, I guess, right? And that's all fine and dandy, but let's do something a little bit more with that now. Let's do a -n in front of it. So this is only going to find entries that we're interested in, and it's going to tell us what line number they're on. That's what the -n is for. The -n is going to give us the line number for which they're going to show up in grep. So that is extremely useful. Nonetheless, say you're trying to get particular entries from a server configuration file. I don't have hardly any servers installed right now, but if I did, gee, I should have installed some. Should install some servers real quick, just so I could show off some configuration files and just as a verbatim simple setup. Alright, I'll tell you what, I'll show you how to do, real quick, get some servers. Let's just go ahead and get vsftpd in here real quick. So let me just do sudo apt-get space install, and then I'm just going to have it install vsftpd, for instance. And it's going to go ahead and download and install that. And this is a very secure FTP server, daemon. Alright, so now it's installed. So now we have vsftpd. And this is probably the best FTP server out there, in my opinion. Yeah, of course we can start and run it from there. But this means that we're going to have the configuration file now that we didn't have before. Now if I go here and pop over here, I'll start reload, whatever. Open, and I'm going to go over to my file system. And actually, I'm probably not running high enough level of... Well, I don't really care, just as long as I can see it. If it becomes a problem, I'll pop in as root privileged and look at it that way. But let's look. vsftpd should be towards the bottom here. Where are you at? Huh. Expected to see this configuration file in here. Consider I've edited this thing more times than I want to count. Ah, just dropped it right down here. How interesting. Well, that's different. Alright. Normally it's inside of a folder. I don't know. Interesting. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. So, anyhow, we have listen here, yes, etc., etc., etc. Now, we got line numbers over here, but what if I wanted to search and change up some things that I want to look for? Maybe I'm only interested in ASCII type commands here for compatibility for web pages. Alright, so I want to grep vsftp.conf file, and I want to give it, I want to find just ASCII here, and I want to do the line numbers with this too, so that way I know what line. See if it's not a D in there. Is that a D? Yeah, it is. vsftpd. Really helps if I spell it correctly. So here we are. We have ASCII here on line 97 and line 98. Let's come over and check our file and see if that is the case. Check it out. Line 97 and 98. Bam! Found it right away. What I was looking for. So this can be extremely useful. So that way you don't have to go hunting through a file to find it right away and get what you want. This also lets you see that, hey, you can get down to just the particulars that you want and extract just the information you want and nothing else. So, very useful and extremely nice indeed. Alright, so that's a bit of line numbers. Now let's look at some other stuff too, what you can also do. Like, for instance, I can turn off case sensitivity. So, right now it's case sensitive for my lookup. But I don't have to make it that way. I can do an I here and go more like, and just make it more case insensitive, for instance. And it's still going to find it. So because it's case insensitive now, see as before there was ASCII over here for your mode, but it wasn't pulling it up for these because, why? Because it was case sensitive. So check that out. So up here, only got the lines I wanted because they were all lowercase ASCII. But if I don't want to have to care about, you know, both, so as for instance, I could do line numbers with, you know, there we go. So now I have line numbers and case insensitivity to my setup here. Okay, so let's look at some more stuff though. That's not all. What if I want to say I don't want to see particular lines on here? Okay, so for instance, I don't want to see the lines with a pound sign maybe. Alright, well, let's check out what that's going to be like. B for, actually, not verbose this time, but actually for removing lines. So these are the only ones that are actually valid in the configuration file. And to make matters even better, I'm going to get what, so not case insensitive, my mistake, I want the line numbers. Okay, so here I can see what directives are actually live, are actually being configured on the server, separate from the defaults, and what lines they're on. So in this way I can quickly get just what I'm interested in. Remember, the comments are there for our own pleasure and so that we can hide particular commands that we want to bring back later at a certain time or something of that nature. And this way this lets us quickly see on a configuration file what is live and what isn't live as far as actual options that are configured on a configuration file. And this makes life so much easier just running something like this. So there we are, quickly grab just what I wanted to see, nothing more, and that's what this all comes down to. That's why we're getting to this advanced shell programming stuff, because it makes life so much easier to find what you're looking for, get it done quickly, and get what you need. And you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to spend a lot more time hunting something down if you don't know how to use these commands and mix up things and get what you want. I'm kind of showing you from a server configuration setup what you would want to do versus what you wouldn't want to do, as far as how you want to use these a bit here, so that way you have some idea of why you're learning this and why it's going to be useful. This can also be used for if you're a programmer. If you're a programmer, you can use this to quickly find the lines of code that you're interested in and ditch everything else. For instance, you could have it not look at the comments in a C++ file. Just as a really quick for instance here. Let me drop over to my home directory. If I just do CD and hit enter, first of all, let me go over to Nate. Alright, so I'm going to become Nate. Alright, I'm going to CD over to Nate. And I'm doing ls in here. Now, cool, I got a folder here called programming. I'm going to CD into that. ls, cool. And, oh, I don't know. Let's see here. Let's drop into... I'm not interested in seeing the stuff that has... I'm going to go into my network chat server. Sounds good to me. Okay, and here's my code in here. And I'm just going to go from... I'm going to grep my main CPP file, right? And I'm going to do a dash in because I want line numbers, and I'm going to do a dash v because I don't want to see the parts here that have well, I don't want to see anything with a double slash, or let's just do a double slash for now, okay? And I'm just going to do main.cpp. Okay, so it just gives me back my code in here with the line numbers with no comments, basically. So I've removed the comments unless of course they have these, begin and end here, in which case I'll have to do some more tricks in order to eliminate those, but you get the idea basically. So very cool indeed. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do grep here, and I'm going to look for maybe, I don't know, something stupid. Let's do main CPP. I'm going to look for, obviously we're going to find this one in the file. So I'm going to look for that star here, but I'm going to be doing something a little different here. I'm going to be doing a dash L here. Okay? And this is going to list just the file names that exist where it was found. So here it's found two files. Found it inside of cb.bmp and also found it inside of main.cpp. So if there's a particular thing I'm looking for, it will find it and tell me what files it is stored in, instead of just giving me what information it is. And that can be very useful indeed. Going back over here to etc, let's see here what would happen if we were to run a command like that over here. Now let's say I chose Nate here, okay? And it's going to be a problem for me because I'm not sudo s. So let me give myself root privileges again. Alright. So what I want to do is I want to do grep -l space over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and say Nate, like so, and then space star for all of them. Okay. This can come back with all the files that it found with Nate in it, and nothing else. So it found Nate inside a group instead of a G shadow, which is a group shadow based setup here. Foremost, complete, BOGO filter, manpath, input RC, password file, shadow file, VSFTP, etc., etc., etc. So very cool. And that immediately lets me know where all it could be. And this way I can quickly find, hey, was something in the file, where is something located at, in what file? I can't remember. I know there's some text I need to find, but I can't remember what file it's in. Bam, running this command will let me quickly find that file. So, very cool. And then of course I could always do recursive grep too, and get even more stuff going on with this. So let's have another look at something else. Let me think. What would be a good way to do this next one? So I need to do, this is going to do the number of line numbers for something's found. Alright, let's just do Nate like so, and then I want to do star here. So, if Nate is repeated on multiple times on a line, it's not going to show up. It's only going to list it once for line and not repeat it multiple times, which is fine and dandy. And there we are. And we got all this here. Okay, so something I want to point out about this right here is that this is the number of instances you see it listed on a particular line. So in this case, you see it getting listed more than once. Let's look at something else here. That's for the -c one here, of course, that we just ran. So yeah, this appears, more often here than the other one. Whereas, say up here, we get it to appear how many times? And this other one up here. Alright, so like say in G shadow or something like that, it appears 8 times. So if we want to see this, well, I don't want to do G shadow. I'm starting to think about it. Wait a minute. I don't want to do that in a video. Nor shadow. Hold on. Let me find another example that's less a security concern, I guess you'd say. Let's see here. I mean, that one's great because it's done 8 times. But all right, let's do complete Tish. So let's go ahead and select that one. And then I'm going to grab my little one there. Okay, so I'm just going to do that one. I'm going to search just for that one there. And I'm going to get rid of my -c here. And check it out. So there's all 3. Because you remember, if I do this with a -c on it, check it out, it appears 3 times. 1, 2, 3 lines that appeared on. Doesn't count if it happens multiple times per line, but only counts it per line that it appears on, period. So very cool and very useful. Alright, so let's look at something else too though. And that is grep w, and this gets into Word, okay? So is it a complete word or is it just part of a another word? So for instance, concatenate is not the same thing as just Nate by itself, right? So if I do it, and maybe we don't want concatenate, we just want Nate, and that makes a whole lot of sense, right? So I'm going to do a -w here, and it's only going to pull up the ones that has just Nate in it. Okay, cool. And I can mix and match, you know what I mean? So now I can come in here and I could say, for instance, a -c here with a -w, and now I'm only getting the ones where it's actually Nate on, and how many times it occurs for the lines. And in here we can see that happening. And we're not getting extra junk that has nothing to do with actually with Nate itself. So we can see it really did streamline the number of files that are going to appear here. But here, for instance, let's look at the password WD file. So pass WD. Alright, so it happens one time. Let me go ahead and get rid of the -C option here, and we see it. And check it out. Yes, we do. We have Nate here by itself, and we have Nate again here. And the reason why is because Nate is the user. Here, this is where the password is. It's over here in the password, not in the password file, but in the shadow file, because that's where the actual passwords are stored, encrypted, so that way people can't just, if they do manage to get their hands on the file and read it, they cannot actually get the actual passwords. They're encrypted. 1000 for my group and user. So here's the user ID. Here's a group ID number. The name of my person here. Of course, I go by Nate Nestler. My home directory location. And what shell am I using right here. Okay. So with that, that gives us a layout of what's going on with that one too. So, I mean, very cool. This really helps make really just helps make life easier by the more of these type of options that we use, you know, the easier and easier this becomes, because we're not having to hunt down things as much. So this is very useful indeed. Well, there's other options too. Some of which just aren't all that useful. I don't know. We're running out of the useful ones here. Right here is the version number and such. If you want to know that for Grep, there's the version information. I don't know. Some of these some of these are not going to be as useful as other ones by a long shot. So we could also do. All right, let's look at some other ones here. This is useful. So let me keep my -W because I want to use it for this particular example. And I'm going to do my -A, capital A here, and then I don't know, a 1 maybe there. Okay, so this is going to find the line directly after mine. So here's the line Nate, right? And it's going to find the line directly thereafter. And I can even help prove this. Let me pull up line numbers on here. If you remember right, that's a -N, right? And check it out, line 34, and then line 35. So it gets the line directly thereafter what I was looking for. Alright, so if I go ahead, I don't know if we'll have a 2 here. So we have 2. Yeah, we do. Alright, so this gets me the two lines thereafter my line there. So, you know, so on and so forth. And so that's pretty cool. It certainly makes life easier by having the line after. We're doing a matching type setup here. But we can also get the ones before it too, and not just after it. So A is after, but capital C here is going to be before. And I can tell it how many I want here before. Okay. So right. And the reason why it would give me invalid, of course, is because I didn't use a number. I need to tell it how much. There we go. So before and after, we get to see what it is, one line before and after. Basically what's around our entry there. So that's pretty cool. It's certainly useful to have it where you can get the lines that are directly around the line that you're looking for. But what if I just did -B? It's only going to get the line before the line that I'm looking for here. So for instance, it's only got GDM because I chose 1 there. If I said 2, it's going to get me the 2 lines above that one. So here we are. We get just the 2 lines above that one, and so on and so forth from that file. and that gave us what we're looking for exactly there. So this is another way which you can help streamline your search and get it down to just what it is that you need. Okay. Let's see here. Alright, and dash B is going to be the byte offset. So there we go, and it gives us that value there for the byte offset. So very useful. Over here is your line number again, as you can see. So line 34 has a byte offset of 1,623. Interesting. Alright. Moving onward. The dash E option, it's gonna do well. Alright, let me just pop over here for the dash E option. And let's well, I need to have, I'll tell you what, hold on. Let's just do a star on this one. Alright, so we need something with leading dashes, basically. I have line numbers, that's cool, I don't care about that. You find something with leading dashes in it. I'll tell you what, that just makes it easy, right? What am I thinking? This is fun, leading dashes, period. Okay. Nothing has leading dashes in it. Let's see if we can't create one that does, then, in that case. ls dash l. There we go. That works. Alrighty then. Let's do something like that. So let's use this to create a file real quick. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll go back into Nate user. I'll go back to my home directory like so. Okay, cool. ls-l like so. Okay, awesome. That works. Okay, let's do that, and let's just redirect that into I don't know, call it listing.txt for instance, and create a file like that. Cool. If I cat listing.txt, it's going to give us what we're looking for here, basically. Okay, so we see some dashes there. So if I go ahead and grep this, and then I give a dash E here, and then I say, oh, I don't know, let's do a check against R like that, right? And I'm just going to do it on listing.txt. Bam. So it only gives me back lines with double dashes in it. So in this way, leading dashes cannot be mistaken for options. And that's basically what we're doing here. We're just saying that, hey, we don't want this to be considered an option or something of that nature, and we can extract it that way. And that's dash E is great for that. So that can be useful. And like before, where we're doing the exact matching here, can get away with doing this in combination with something else. For instance, this becomes useful with, alright, I'll show you. If I do a dash X here, this is going to give me just, so say I want that line right there, right? Bam, I get just that line, and the dash in front of it's not going to be considered an option, so it comes out working just fine, and that lets us get around with it. But it gets us just that particular line verbatim, because that's the dash X means that, hey, this line has to be exactly verbatim, just like this spaces, characters, everything. But remember, the dash in front of it could be considered an option, so with the dash E there, that prevents it from being considered an option, even though this thing starts with a dash here in front of the RW. So that keeps us from getting it confused with, say, a dash E or a dash X here or something of that nature as being an option passed in. So that certainly makes life a lot easier and a lot better, and where we'll have repeating input. Alright, so if I just do an ls here, right, it'll give me a listing here, but let's face it, this file right here is already kind of set up. So what I'm going to do is append the ls to this file here. Alright, so if I go ahead and cat my listing.txt file now, check it out, I now have this in both parts, but I got repeating input because I have downloads here and I have downloads here, even though there are two different setups. Let's check it out where we only find repeating patterns, if you will. Alright, so we're going to do grep-f here. Let's do another one. Let's just call it repeat, I guess, .txt. ls, and let's just pipe this into it and call it repeat. Alright, like so. So now we got repeat.txt, and I'm just going to go one step further with this other one just because I feel like it. I'm going to do a dash A here. Alright, so now it's appended to. If I cat this again, so check it out, now I also have hidden folders and such in there too. Okay, cool. So now we're going to check against repeated values here for f. So grep-f here, and I'm going to say repeat txt listing.txt. If I can get my fingers to work, bam. Okay, so it was only finding entries where there were repeated patterns. See that? And the cool thing about this is I can even tell it, of course, dash line numbers here. It would so help if I did a space. There we go. And so you can see what line numbers these appeared on, where we have repeated values over and over again. So there we are. You'll notice we're not getting any of these hidden files, right? Because the hidden files aren't going to be weren't part of the regular ls, because they're not. The dash a is going to be just the hidden files. So ls-a, of course, is just going to give me my hidden files. So these aren't repeated within an ls, which was going to be, remember, cat for my repeat here. Let's see if I can't point this out. See how we have these? These don't have any dots in front of them, right? Because we didn't do it with the dash A. So it's not going to grab them, and instead it's going to include anything, because it's not part of a repeated pattern, that has a dot in front of it, and it's only going to give me the ones I'm looking for that are being repeated inside of this file. Or basically, look at it this way, we're matching entries in this file with that file. Why would this be useful? Well, basically, you could do your configuration file that you know should be the configuration file and it should be good, right, on the network. But with this setup, with this, you can determine whether or not your entries are identical to the one that's currently on your system. So if someone's hacked into your system and changed the configuration file, you can immediately find where all your lines are identical, and it should be a match. So and you can see what line numbers are different than your original one, and it should stick out like a sore thumb with this setup here. Bam. You could even negate it to where you don't find the ones that are listed, and I should have done that in a different place. There we go. So by doing the -v, I negate it. So I'm not, instead of looking for instead of getting back the lines, so I would use this setup if I was doing right here, if I was trying to find what was changes from what a hacker had changed in my file. So I can check my original configuration file against my current configuration file, and anything that had changed from my previous one with my actual correct configuration file with what's actually on the system, it will pop out immediately and tell me on what line number it is. And this way I can quickly see what someone has done, trying to break into the system, hacking into the system. You know, if I have chroot jail or something like that set up for my configurations, and they're editing basically false configuration files, and they don't realize it, I can see what someone's trying to do on my system and block them, of course. I can say hunt down and see who's doing what activities in the log files and hunt them down. And of course I can extract out who's doing what in the log files, because I'll know what what file they've been editing and messing with and what they've been doing quickly, and it helped me hunt down who it is, and then I can block them out, etc., get their IP address, whatever, and submit them, you know, to authorities. So this is really useful. It's really quite cool, and this is a really, I mean, my gosh, you know, from a networking standpoint, this is awesome, and this really does help you hunt down what you're looking for in a very concise manner and keep you from just running all over the place.